E-commerce Unit 1 is Introduction to E-commerce and Technology Infrastructure. So in this unit, we'll be seeing about the working of web, HTML markup structures, and creating simple web pages along with marking up text, adding links, adding images, and few protocols, internet protocols, table markups, forms, and HTML5. In this, the most important question comes from forms and HTML5 along with links and markups. Okay, so the table of content includes what is e-commerce, working of web. Again, the syllabus comes under this table of content. So first thing we're going to see is what is e-commerce. Nowadays, companies like Amazon, Flipkart, Google, Apple, and Facebook are the part of our life. And same way, the companies like Ola, Zomato, Uber are also the part of our life. So all these types of companies are serving on-demand services in various fields for home applications to the travel and hotels. So e-commerce signifies to buying and selling of goods and services using the internet. Additionally, with that, the transaction of money and data to execute these services are using internet. In other words, e-commerce comes like selling of physical product online is all refers to e-commerce, and in other words we can also tell that e-commerce describes any kind of commercial transaction that is facilitated through internet. So coming to this, there are four business models to e-commerce. First one is business to business model. In this business to business model, Amazon gets help from other sub companies in order to gather the goods, and then it delivers the services to the people. So this is what is business to business. Again, business to business includes companies. For example, we'll take a car manufacturer company. For the car manufacturer, he wants to make a car with along with some tools like engines, tires, and all that. For that, he buys the engine from engine company separately and tire from the tire company, like we'll tell like MRF tires and so on. So for this, business partner gets help from the another business partner. So this is the business to business. Then business to customer is what Amazon does again. So Amazon gives service and goods to human beings, that is people. Okay, and customer to customer is where both the customer are the business holder and the customer client. Okay. So for example, this comes mostly in OLX, Quicker and all that, where customers sell their own product to the other customer. Customer to business is where customer dedicate their own work or their own stuffs to the business partners, like designing their logo or preparing some websites and all that. So this is customer to customer. Again, there are other two business models that are business to administration and consumer to administration. Let's see the working of web. Working of web consists of 4 to 5 modes, that is personal computer, web browser, internet connection, web server, routers, and switches. Personal computer is where you work or you interact with your web, that is client side is the personal computer. Web browser is the software that is installed on your computer that helps you to surf or browse the web. An internet connection is provided by ISP as usual, and which will connect you to the internet to reach any website. And web server is the computer on the website's host. Routers and switches are the combination of software and hardware who takes your request and pass to appropriate web server. So this kind of client server system is where your computer is a client and the remote computer that stores the electronic files are the server. So this is how the general nodes of computers are. Now let's see the working. So this diagram includes the working of the web, actual working of the web. So first, when you enter something like HTTP, technical publications .co.in. So this link request goes to the special computer. That is, it may be a single or multiple computer, but request will go to one of these computers only on the internet, which is known as your DNS, that is domain name service. So the routers and switches routes all the request, and the DNS keeps table of machine names and their IP addresses. When you type this link, it gets translated into a number. So this number identifies the computer that serves the technical publication websites for you, right? Okay, next. To view any page on the web, you must start the process by requesting a page using your web browser. So the browser asks a DNS to translate the requested domain name into a IP address, and the request then is sent by the browser to the server for the page you want, and using standard call, that is HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It is essential for the server that it should constantly be to the internet and always ready to serve pages to the visitors. When any request made for the web page, actually it requires web browser to request more than one file from the web server, like what we have, like HTML page, any images, styles, sheets, and other resources that we use in the web page. Each of these files, including the main page, needs a URL to identify each item, and this item is finally sent by the web server to the web browser. Okay, then the web browser collects this information and displays them in front of a web page. So this is how the entire web request and response is happening. So this is the web HTML structure, markup structure. So the markup structure first includes the doc type HTML. What does this doc type HTML tells? So that we'll see in the next slide. So before that, so this is how the entire structure of HTML looks like. Head tags, body tag, HTML tag. So the entire HTML tags comes within the HTML closing and opening and closing tags. Okay, so in this HTML tag, there are two types of tags, paired and singular tags. What are these paired tags? Paired tags is what is this head, title, body, and all that, because they have the opening tag and the closing tag. And singular tags are nothing but the tags that doesn't have your closing tag. For example, like BR tag, that is break line. So that will come across later in the slides, following slides. And BR tag is used only once, that doesn't contain any break tag, that is closing tag. Okay. Head tag is where you include all the detail about the HTML, like their version, their metadata, their title, everything. And body is where the actual content of your HTML page remains. Okay, now let's see the first line of your structure, that is doc type HTML. What does this doc type HTML tells is that tells the HTML version. Okay, so sometimes you will integrate your HTML with the W3C school. In that case, you will include the entire link in this doc type HTML. So here we just use only HTML. So just we are including HTML. But in case you're integrating with any other websites, then you have to include those links here. That is where is a doc type within the doc type tag. Okay, next is your HTML tag. This is the root element and is used to wrap all the codes. Then your head tag that comes with the metadata, title, page, CSS, etc. And now head tag contain all these following tags like style, title, base, non-script, script, meta, and everything. And body tag, as I already told, it is the entire content of your web pages or a web site. Okay. Now, what are all the basic tags of HTML? HTML contains a lot of basic tags that are used for general formatting or general content description. Okay, so first one is your heading tag. So each and every document should start with a heading, right? So you can use various size for your heading. As you see here, the heading 1 is bigger and the heading 6 is the smallest one. So while you're see here the basic tag of HTML, this heading is little bigger than this HTML tag 1, that is the next subheading. So in order to differentiate the sizes, you should use the HTML tag. Okay, so the first one is the biggest one and the last one is the smallest tag, which you use the tag for displaying any heading. The browser adds one line before and one line after the heading. Okay, fine. So next one is the paragraph tag. So here I have included few examples. So based on this example only, you should explain your answer so that your answer would be clear and legible. Okay. So paragraph tag, why is this paragraph tag used and where it is used? If you want to add any paragraph in your web page, you have to add this paragraph tag. Paragraph tag is nothing but your, wait. So this is what is your paragraph tag. This P and this P. Okay, so this is what is your paragraph tag. So within that paragraph, your paragraph looks legible when you want to include other content, and also when you want to differentiate a particular content from the rest of your web page content. Okay. Now the next one comes here is line break tag. What is this line break tag? Line break tag is a singular tag because it doesn't contain any closing tag separately. Okay, so any text that is following this line break tag, it starts from the next line. Fine. So that is, it gives a break in your line. So this tag is an empty tag as usual, and it is required to have a space between BR and forward slash, because if we omit this space, the older browsers, sometimes when you don't update or when you use something like older version of the browser, so the older browser will have a trouble rendering that line break. So in addition with that, if we miss the forward slash character and just BR, it is not valid in XHTML. Okay, that is another point. Make a note of it. Next one is, see here, hello. So here you are showing interest for reading this book. So each and every line contains this BR tag. So after this BR tag, we are having a break of that statement, and the next line comes on the next, the next sentence comes to the next line. So this is what is the working of line break tag. Next is, okay, centering content. So if you want to put the content in the center of the page, then you have to use this center tag. Okay. So the center tag, this text is with a center tag. So this text is with the center tag is within the center tag. So that is why the particular text is being centered to the page. Next is your horizontal tag. If you want to break up sections of a document horizontally, then horizontal lines are used, and for that you need to add the HR tag from where you want to break up your document contents, right? So there the HTML tag creates a line to the next line of content where you use the tag till the right margin of the page, and the further content or document will be displayed from the next line. Okay, so if you're having your HR tag here, this is again an empty tag. And if you're having your HR tag here, the line is being drawn and the next statement will be thrown to the next part. Okay, this is where you make your website legible and easy to read. Next comes your HTML elements. So what are all these HTML elements, tags, attributes, and all that? So HTML elements, especially in HTML file, if the statement or code is in the form of a start tag, then some content, say start tag, then some content, and your end tag, then that is said to be your HTML element. Okay. HTML element with no content is always an empty element. So, for example, let's come to this one. See, your paragraph tag. Okay, first the opening of the tag is given, next a content, next the closing of the tag. So this is what is an element. Okay, yeah.
Next is your attribute. So the characteristics of HTML element which is placed inside your opening tag is called your attribute. So this is your attribute. This is some value you're giving to your paragraph, like your designing your paragraph tag. Like it has to be in the left side, it should be in the right side. So it's like formatting your tag. So that will be your attribute. Characteristics is given deeply using this attribute tag. So this is how the example is being given, and some other attributes includes ID, title, class, style, and all that. So ID attribute is when if you want to uniquely identify an element with an HTML page, then the ID attribute can be used. This ID attribute comes mainly in the frames and the forms, because there you will be pointing out different forms and different frames uniquely. So there you will be using this ID attribute mostly. Next is your title attribute. So here, if you want to provide a suggested title for the element, then you will be using this title attribute. So whenever there is a button on your page, okay, button on your website, for example, let me assume HTML attribute. This sentence is an button. Okay, due to some internet connection or some other website loading issue, my page stops loading. All right, but the button is not shown. For that, if I place the button, if I place my cursor over that small icon or something, the title will be shown as content. Okay, so the title will be shown. For that title, you should give your own content. As usual, what you give here is, see, aligned equal to left. So you should give a small space and type as title equal to button. So if for that, if you give if you place a cursor over that, over the icon or something, that is whenever the page stops loading, a small icon will be shown. So if you keep a cursor over that icon, the description of that icon will be given. Or sometimes when you are submitting a form, okay, so the button, meaning of that button will not be known to you. For that, even you, for that case, when you keep a cursor over the button, the title will be shown. As how you get your message whenever you keep your cursor over the icon in a Word document. If, for example, if you keep your icon over a search button, search icon, then that will, the name of the icon will be shown. That is how the title works. Okay. Next is your class attribute. um, Class attribute is used to like associate an element with a style sheet. So mostly this is like mostly when you use CSS. Okay, so like we'll tell us class equal to class name 1, 2, and 3. So that is how the class attribute works. And style attribute is used when you want to specify a CSS rule within the element. CSS rule within the element. We all already know that whenever you want to give a particular inline style, so there you will be including style is equal to so on, like background images to URL and all that. So that is what is this style attribute. Next is creating your HTML page. So what are all the steps in creating your HTML page? Before that, you should first think of your content, like business proposals or something for what you're doing, creating your HTML page. And then you're starting to create the HTML page. What you have to do is, in the first step, what you have to do is just open a text editor like Notepad, or recently you'll be using Notepad plus plus of your computer, and create a new file, a normal file. Okay, so mostly it is recommended to use Notepad on Windows operating system. Okay, so for if you people are using Mac, then use text edit, or some may use Linux operating system, then if you people can use its VI editor. So this is not recommended to use WordPad or a Word for HTML, because you know what, that is not so much of supportive. And once you get all the basic rules and functionalities, then You can switch to the tools like Dreamweaver and all that. Okay, so the next step is prepare some HTML code in the newly created file. So here is some sample code that I have shown here. So the first line of the code is doctext that instructs the web browser that the given document is in the HTML format, and it is also a case sensitive. So we can say this line is the document type declaration. Okay, so the next one is uh, and again, one thing to be noted is this doc type declaration itself is not an HTML tag. Okay, every HTML document requires a document type declaration. So what is to ensure that your page are displayed correctly. Then comes your HTML head body tag that makes up the basic skeleton of every web page. The head tag is used for providing the information about the document like title of the document and so on. Content inside that HTML, that is content within the closing and opening of the HTML head tag. Okay, of this head tag are invisible to users with the one expectation, the text between title and closing bracket of title tag, which appears as the title on the browser tab. So next, the body element contains the actual content which will be reflected in the web browser and then displayed to the user. So this content may be paragraph, links, images, tables, and so on. Okay. So final step is here saving your file. So the extension of your file must be .html or sometimes .htm. Okay. So let's say that the name of the newly created file where you typed above code is just my first web page.html. Now, if you want to open the same file in any web browser available in your computer, navigate to your file, then double click on it. Okay, that is file location. It will open in the default web browser as I shown here. And if it is failed to open, then again you have to follow the steps again from the beginning. So there might be some error. If there is some error, then there might be an error in your web browser also. Okay, this is the saving of your file. Next one is HTML elements formatting. So there are few formatting elements when it comes to HTML. The first one is the bold text that defines the boldness of the text, and the next one is the strong. Mostly the bold and strong are being confused, and the next part is italics and the emphasized text. So these two will be mostly confused, and yeah, other things are same. And yes, INS, that is inserted text and deleted text. These two tags will again come as a combination, and that also confuses people mainly. Where the strike line for the delete tag, the deleted text will be striken, the line will come above the text. Whereas in INS, the line comes below the text. This is the main difference between the both. So here the first one, the text is shown bold, and whereas for the strong, the text is shown differently. So I think you can see the difference with this. First, bold is just giving your text with an extra width and extra importance. It's not given with this bold tag, whereas your strong has extra importance. Okay, this is the difference between these two. And next is italic and emphasized text. So the HTML element defines a part of the text is an alternative voice or mood, whereas your EM element defines emphasized text, and the content inside is typically displayed in italics. Okay, so whereas here in this emphasized text element, a screen reader will pronounce the word in the EM within an emphasis with an emphasis using verbal stress. Next is your mark text and deleted text. Mark text is nothing but if you want to highlight a particular statement, then there you will be using a mark text. Mark text, sorry. Next is the deleted text. See the example here in the output, the line is drawn above the text. So this is what the text you want to delete, then include the delete tag within this statement. See here, del, Java and closing of del. Okay, this will bring a strong line over the text. Then insert the text. Here, the line is given below the text. That is like want to show like this text is inserted. Then you can use this kind of text. Then subscript. Subscript text is where you will be seeing in a lot of logarithmic functions and chemical formulas where the numbers comes as a subscript to your letter. And superscript is mainly seen in where your value includes some power. If you want to show some power value, then this superscript can be used. Next is HTML links. So this HTML links are again an important concept in this unit 1. HTML links, what does this HTML links do is it allows users to click and redirect from page to page. You know, nowadays all the web pages almost contains the links, and all the HTML links are often called as hyperlinks. When you click on any hyperlink, you will be moved from one page or a document to other page or a document. As you all know, the mouse arrow will turn into little ant that you have already seen while you're doing some other operation within your normal applications. And also when you move the mouse over a link, the ant symbol will be displayed. So the HTML tag A defines the hyperlink, and if you want to use this tag, you have to use the syntax like AEAHREF. This kind of a syntax should be used. And there are other link colors. So an unvisited link will be shown in an underlined and blue color. Your visited link will be underlined and will be shown in a purple color. An active line link will be underlined and shown in the red color. So the next is your target attribute. There are a lot of attributes used in this link, and one among them is the target. So the target defines where to open your parent tab. Okay, so while user clicks on this link on the web browser, by default that page will be displayed in the current browser only. Okay, if you want to change this, the target attribute must be specified in the HTML link element. So where to open the link document is specified by the target attribute, and the target attribute can be having one of the following values like self, blank, parent, top. Self that opens the document in the same window or tab as it was clicked. Okay, and blank opens the document in a new window or a new tab, and parent opens the document in the parent frame, and top opens the document in the full body of the window. So this here, the example includes underscore blank, so that opens the document in a new window or a tab. Again, for links, you should include URLs. Mostly URLs are used, but there are two types of URLs, absolute and relative URL. And absolute URL is a full web address in the href attribute, and the local link, that is a link to the page within the same page, is specified with as a relative URL. So absolute URL is like this: HTTPS double slash technical publication org. So this is your absolute link. And for example, let me tell you, just what can we say is just like about.html. go.html. So page within the link within another link. That is your relative URL. That is a half of your absolute URL will be your relative URL. Only the main part will be included. So including just technicalpublication.org will be your relative URL. Again, you can use image, mail, and button as a link. So when you use button as a link, then there comes the JavaScript codes and functionalities. For email, you should include mail to inside the href attribute, and image you have to include your image URL. That can be your absolute URL or a relative URL. So in case if your image is not within that particular file or a folder, then you need to include the absolute URL specifying the entire address of the image. Whereas if your image is within that particular folder where the HTML is running, then just the name of the folder, name of the image is enough, and that is your relative URL. Okay. Next is HTML images. So image is again an important topic where you include a lot of attributes, lot of specifications and characters for this image. So any web page can be look attractive if you will add the good images in the web page. So if you want to add an image in a web page, you need to use the HTML img tags, right, as I have given in the example. So images are not technically inserted into a web page, but these images are linked to the web page. And next is holding space. Holding space to the reference image can be created by this tag especially, and it is an empty tag. img is an empty tag, and it does not have a closing tag. Obviously, if it is an empty tag, it does not have a closing tag, and it contains two attributes. So one is the source and the other one is the alt. Source is mainly used to specify the path of the image, and alt is used to specify an alternate text for the image. So these are the two important tags, and alt, yeah. So alt and source is given in this example. So for source, whenever your page is loading and the image is not visible, in that case, small icon is visible. And when you place a cursor on that icon, you will be given as a Taj Mahal Agra. This message will be given. Okay. So this is your alternative when there is no picture, and this will be displayed as an alternative. This is the purpose of ALT tag. So apart from this, you have size like height, weight, and all that. This is a background image. See, and this output, the background image is repeated 1, 2, 3, and 4 based on the size of the desktop or size of your PC, personal PC. Okay, in that case, if you use this kind of syntax like no repeat, you see, if you use this CSS code background repeater, no repeat, then there will not be a repeat in the image. So there will be a single image that is within this text.
Table markup. To arrange data into rows and columns, HTML tables are used by the web developers. And HTML table is defined by the table tag, that is open bracket and closing bracket of your table tag. A TR tag defines each table row, and TH tag defines each table header, and TD tag defines each table data or a cell. So the text in TH tag, that is table heading tag or table heading elements, are by default bold and centered. Similarly, the text in TD elements are by default regular and left aligned. So you can see this in this example. So the example includes column span and row span. So what is the difference between column span and row span is, if you want to make a cell span more than one row, then you need to use row span attribute.
Or if you want to make a cell span more than one column, then you have to use your column span. So another two wordings come into action for this table markup. They are cell padding and cell spacing. What is the cell padding? Cell padding specifies the space between the cell content and its own border. Okay, cell spacing or border spacing specifies the space between the cells. If you want to set the border spacing for a table, you can use CSS border spacing property also. Okay, so for example, if you give a border spacing option for 15 pixel, then it would show a space between each cell, that is border of this cell with the border of the next cell. In between, you will have a space of 15 pixels. Okay. And again, if you want to define any special style for a particular table, you can add an ID attribute to the table, and for that specific ID, you can specify the styles accordingly. And also, you can add the table captions. Yeah, you can add table caption. If you want to add a caption to a table, then you will add the caption tag for that particular table. And if you want to define a special style for one particular table, you can add ID attribute. Also, you can also give your inline CSS style, or otherwise you can specify in this border, table tag itself with its specific attributes like font size or font family or anything like that. Even you can also add the background for this table. Even you can include images or any colors can also be given. So each cell can be given with a separate color, or the entire table can be represented with a single color. So background images or background color can be decided based on the business requirements. So that is all about this table markup. And next is HTML forms. When will we use this HTML forms and where will we using this? So if you want to collect user input, where these input most often is sent to a server, you have to use an HTML form. So generally when you see some registration forms as well, you have a lot of fields recording users inputs. Okay, so that in turn will be saved in a database for the later functionalities. And finally, when you submit all your details, the submit button will be validated by the JavaScript and according to its actions. Okay. To create HTML form for the user input, the HTML uses form element. Okay, so the different type of inputs such as text field, checkboxes, radio buttons are contained by HTML form element, and so it is called as the container for such type of inputs. So let us consider few code snippet that I have included in later slide so that it is a better way. Okay. Okay, this is how the actual form snippet looks like. And here we have included just the input type as text, where the text receives the text input from the user. That is, if you're giving a name, then that name will be in a text format, right? So that will be taken as an input. And if you want to give any email ID or your phone number as an input or password as an input, so during the case where you want to log in, then you have to give your password as an input. So in that case, you will have a separate type for a password. So in that case, your password will be hidden with a star or any other bulleted points also. Okay, so here we have specified the value as name. So when you give this value will be displayed on the output box screen. Okay, when you don't give any value, the user will automatically have to enter the value. Otherwise, this value will be retained. This is how the actual form looks like and works. Then the form's first line contains action. So this is okay. So this action page, what it does is, whenever you submit the form will be redirected to this action page.html. This is what this action attribute reminds you. Okay, whenever you perform any action, whenever you submit a form or reset your form, or whenever you do some triggering to your form, this action attribute will be throwing you to the next form or next page, or within the page also you will be displayed with some message or anything like that. And here you can also use JavaScript for validating your field values. For example, if you want your user to enter phone number that contains only 10 digits, okay, but your user is entering some 11 or 12 digit number, then you will throw an error like this value will not be accepted. So that validation will be performed by your JavaScript functionalities. Okay, this is what is the actual functionalities of forms according to the HTML thing. Don't confuse and make it as a complex issue, including this JavaScript attributes and tags and all that. So for now, we'll use only this HTML tags and HTML elements, form elements. That is enough for your syllabus. Okay. Okay. And here I have shown a lot of input type. First one is your button. This button will specify the clickable option. So on clicking this particular button, this particular action will be taken. So this is what this button specifies. And color, date and time, local, file, image, all this can be given as an input. While coming to this image, you have seen in a lot of websites where you want to upload your passport size photos, or for any other registration forms, you will be uploading your signature or any other proofs and all that. So for that, you will be using this image as your type. Okay, and coming to the next one, number, radio button. As you know, the radio button will accept either or option. So any one options should be clicked. If either more than one is clicked, then the other will be hidden. Whereas your checkbox will not be so. So for checkbox, you can select multiple options which you like. Okay, so then you have email as your type, where email will be validated only when you have that at symbol. So the email format will be retained here. Okay, so this is how the input type works. As their name specifies, they have their particular functionalities. So what is this input element specifies is, this input element is one which is the most used element in the HTML forms, as you know. So depending on the type of the attribute, the input element can be displayed on the user's interactive page. Okay, this is what is shown on the example that I have explained you. Okay, so this is something very simple thing. Okay, so these are all the tags. Okay, these are all the input types and tags. Here you can see label. Label is for several form elements that you are usually defined with a label element, and the label element help users who have difficult clicking on every small region, such as your radio button or checkboxes, because it toggles the radio button or checkboxes whenever the user clicks the text within the label element, right? Okay, so the input for the IT attribute of input element should be same as the for attribute of the label tag, so that they can be binded together. So whenever the ID attribute of the input tag is equal to the for attribute of the label tag, then that form works well with the user interaction. If that is different, then the functionality will not be generated as such. Okay, next we have your select. So what is the select element specifies? So the drop down list is specified by the select element. Okay, whenever you, for example, whenever you want to select some options like place of residing in some form, or some other place where you see that. So whenever you want to select the place you reside, your drop down will be shown up. Okay, so you will be searching for your place in that particular list. So that is what is the action of the select element, and the select element has several option values, and within that option value only you will be giving your values that will be shown as an option in a drop down list. Okay, so next comes your text area. We will go text area. So what does this text area element does? This element allows multi-line input field. So that is a text area. Okay, so the row attribute and column attribute can be used to specify the visible number of lines in the text area and the visible width of the text respectively. Okay, so this is simple. Text area is where you want to give lot of, when you are not giving a single statement or a single word, then you will be using a text area. If you specify some feedback or some issues related to that particular site, then you will be using this text area only. Okay, and then button I already told, it is just a clickable button, can be defined by this button element. Whenever you click this button, the corresponding action will be taken place. So on-click functionality can be used in the case of JavaScript whenever you want to include the JavaScript snippet. And next is we'll combine this field set and the legend because they come into action both together. So to group related data in a form, the field set element will be used. Okay, so a caption for that field set element will be defined by a legend element. Okay, so you have seen in many forms where the caption will be given or some title will be given for that particular form or that particular field set. So in that case, this legend is only helping that wordings to be displayed. Okay, and next we go to data list. Data list that is another somewhat new thing that you haven't seen in many websites, but rarely you will see in some of the forms that you do online. Okay, so if you want to specify a list of predefined options for an input element, you have to use this data list element definitely. Okay, so the user will see a drop down list of the predefined option as their input data and the ID attribute. So here comes the ID attribute. The ID attribute of the data list element must refer the list attribute of the input element. So this is how the data list element works. But in the case of form, you will be having label. For data list, you are having list and ID attributes. Okay. Okay. Next is your in output element. So the output element, most of the result of the calculations are represented by this output element. Whenever you want to produce an output with a calculation, then this output element will be used. And this comes in handy with JavaScript snippet also. Okay, next we see some of the attributes like target, and that all those attributes are very common. And action attribute we have already seen. So again, I'll tell the action attribute. When the form is submitted, which action to be performed or defined by this action attribute. Okay, normally when the user clicks in the submit button, the form data is sent to the file in the server. Right. So if the action attribute is omitted, what happens? The action is set to the current page only. Okay, this is how the action works. Once you click on the submit button, it will do the action on the specified page. That is your current particular page where you're working, and that execute the code of that page. So the web browser view the, for example, your action page is given. So the web browser will view the action page.html. Okay, whenever you submit a form. Okay, so then we use target attribute as well. So target attribute we have seen in the links, HTML links, the same thing will be included here, like bottom, sorry, not bottom, blank, self, parent, top, and additionally a frame name will be added here. So the frame name is where the response is displayed in the named frame. So whenever you give the target equal to particular frame name, then there your action will be directed. Okay, so this is how the attributes for this works, attributes for the form works. Next, you have your method attribute. So method attribute is very important whenever you consider the form action to be submitted in which format. So that is divided by your get and post methods. Okay. So what does this get and post does? So what is the difference between get and post? All this will be seen in this slide. So when you're submitting the form data, you are sending the data in some specified method attribute. Okay. So then your form data can be sent as a URL variable with method get or HTTP post transaction with method post. Okay, so what does this get method does is whenever you submit your values, your data will be taken to the URL in the name value tag. So then, then that value will be displayed on your address bar. So that will not be the case in post method. While you're transferring some what kind of some sensitive information like a password or some other information like some bank details and all that, that will not be included on the address bar. So that in that case you will be using the post method. Most recommended method is post method only, and it doesn't have any limitations on the character to be displayed. Okay, and yes, so this is the difference between your post and get method. And here is the example for get method. So whenever you submit your action with get method, then that value will be displayed on your address bar. But in the case of post method, that will not be so. See here, that is not shown here. So this is what the main difference between get post method. So whenever a question comes from HTML forms, you have to include both your diagrams, example, and your explanation should be based on that example. And you should also explain about the tags, attributes, elements that comes under the HTML form. Okay. Okay. And now we'll come to the difference between HTML and HTML5. There are a lot of differences between the HTML and the upgraded version of HTML, that is HTML5. So first is it doesn't support the audio and video without the use of Flash Player, whereas your HTML5 supports just video and audio just with the use of audio and video tags. Okay, so HTML uses the cookies to store temporary data, whereas your HTML5 uses capture to store the offline data. Okay. HTML does not allow JavaScript to run in the browser, whereas your HTML5 would include all the APIs in the web browser. Okay. Now the vector graphics is possible with the help of various technologies as VML, Silverfish, and so on, whereas the HTML5 uses just comes along with the integral part like SVG and Canvas and so on, and it does not allow drag and drop effect, whereas this allows drag and drop effect. HTML doesn't support the old browsers. Sorry, HTML supports only old browsers, whereas your HTML5 will be supported by all the new browsers. HTML is very less mobile friendly, whereas your HTML5 is more mobile friendly. And again, the dot type differences is also handy. And then geolocation is not possible in HTML, whereas it is possible in HTML5. These are the main differences between HTML and HTML5. Now we'll go to the features and okay. These are the features of HTML tags, and why we should use HTML is because of this kind of features that it's becoming a new standard. It is faster and cheaper, modern, and that is something that is not possible previously. And it is also supports mobile devices. These are the difference between the HTML4 and 5. So you need to include the div tag for all the content, whereas HTML5 give as a separate element. So this is how the structure of HTML5 looks. So for each and every division, you use a separate tag. Okay. This is a unique feature of HTML5, and here you will see the tags, semantics and structural tags of HTML file. As their name specifies, their corresponding description is also same. So once you go through all the names, you can use those tags in your website according to your recommendations or business needs. So now we come to the end of the unit 1, and here we have given some possible questions. Apart from this, you will get more scenario-based questions. When you become thorough with all these questions, you can also write those scenario questions also. Okay, both 2 mark and 16 marks or any 13 mark question can be answered when you read all those questions and answer. Okay. So first one is explain HTML forms along with its tags and attributes. So whenever it comes to HTML forms or HTML frames, links, lists, and so on, you should include an example and you explain based on that example so that you can cover a lot of pages and also valid information can be produced as an output. Okay, and now next is the internet protocol. So what does this internet protocol include is like IP protocol, TCP, SMTP, HTTP, HTTPS, and so on. So, and the other one is PPP. So all these kind of protocols can be explained. You can explain in the format of diagrams, or you can just put a side heading and you can give just 1 or 2 sentences for each protocols and so on. Mostly these questions will not be asked in this unit because the same concept is included in unit 3 and unit 4. Okay. So, and next one is www and HTTPS. So what is the main difference between these two is www, World Wide Web, uses HTTP to produce the output, that is a response for a request. Okay, this is the main thing that you have to include as a difference. Next is the features of HTML5. Next, you will be seeing the structural and semantic tags that we have already discussed. Table markup, the direct question for a table, and formatting tags includes all the formatting tags. I have seen a lot of formatting tags, including the text formatting, that is your font formatting, image formatting, and all that. And next is your frames. So frames are nothing but you're dividing your browser into different window. Okay, each window can be having separate scroller, separate interaction with the user and all that. So that similar to div, frames works in the same manner, but in case of frames, mobile devices, mobile users might feel it difficult because for a division, you're giving a separate division for that particular portion, whereas frames will be changing based on the size of the windows. Okay, for laptop, different frame will be displayed, and for mobile, different frame will be displayed. So for that, you need to keep in mind some of the disadvantages of frames also. Heading tags, again, there are 6 heading tags, and lists in HTML includes ordered and unordered list. Ordered list will be in numbered format. Bullets will not be included. In that case, numbering will be given, and unordered list includes different types of bullets. Okay, bulleted points. And next is explain HTML links. Links, again, we have seen like href, page, images can be included, mails can be included as a link, and also buttons. So explain your answers with some examples, then it would be better for validations. So that is all about this unit. Thank you so much, and we'll meet in the next unit.